Oh, Mike, it might just be you and I. Oh, there we go.
We have one person. No, people are starting to come in.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. I was just
Couple
telling
people.
Mike it might just be the two of us today, but I see you all coming in. So good afternoon to you. Hello, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing well. I have to move tomorrow. The flu is always a fun thing. We have the movers coming, but we'll be ready. It's all good.
It's always fun.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let me go ahead and get started. Mike, are you okay? Can you see my screen okay?
Yeah, it's totally cool. We're good. Go for it.
Awesome. Here we go. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lauren Simpson. I am with the SBDC, or the Small Business Development Center, and we're a national program with over 1,000 locations across the country. And we offer no-cost services to local small businesses. Now, our services are at no cost because your tax dollars have already taken care of all of our fees. For the Los Angeles network, which is the network that we represent, we have locations in Los Angeles, Santa Barbara, and Ventura counties. And if you take a look at your screen, you will see a map showing physical locations for all of our centers. You'll see that we're in Camarillo and Santa Clarita, out in Pasadena, all the way out to Laverne. And then you'll see that we're throughout Los Angeles, the South Bay, down into Long Beach. Now, I mentioned those centers, and as I mentioned in the very beginning, our services are at no cost. Here are those services. So we offer no-cost business advising. We also offer no-cost virtual trainings. Now, if I go back to the business advising, that's where you're able to meet one-on-one with one of our experts, so our business experts. And we have experts in various fields, from marketing to taxes and finance to business planning if you're just starting out. Or we actually have a specialized group called the ACT team, and they will assist with access to capital. We also offer, again, those virtual trainings, and those are going to be free webinars where you're able to be trained on topics, again, in marketing. If you're looking to create a business plan, we have a really cool restaurant curriculum or series, excuse me, childcare. Honestly, you name it, we've got the topic for you. So please be sure to get in contact with us today. We'd love to work with you. You can reach us by phone, 866-588-7232, or you can go online, smallbizla.org/new client. If you've reached us and you're outside of our service area, that means that you are outside of the Los Angeles, Santa Barbara, or Ventura counties. Please be sure to go to americassbdc.org/find your SBDC. Really quickly, Mike, let's do some house cleaning.
Sure.
Everyone, please be sure to put all questions into the Q&A. Again, questions into the Q&A, and let's keep them on topic. And then we'd also like you to take a look at the chat. That's where you can see information or useful links that Mike would like to share with you. And also, maybe, Mike, right before you get started, if everyone could, who's with us today, if you could drop in what your business is, and maybe even the industry, and let us know if whether or not you're an SBDC client. And then we can get started. All right, Mike, I'm going to throw it over to you.
Thank you. For those of you who were not with us last week, we talked about employees and what you have to do to hire an employee. So we're going to continue on that topic. By the way, if there's another topic you want to cover, we can cover it in another session, and go ahead and put it in the chat room, and we will go ahead and take care of that. We have an entire content library and lots of other advisors to call upon. We have over 200 advisors scattered throughout the LA County with expertise in many different areas. So I'm going to stay focused on the employee issue, and I have an employee handbook, a model handbook they want to go over with you. Keep in mind that we've been talking about a hypothetical brick and mortar toy store, my dream toy store in Santa Monica. I don't think it'll ever happen. However, that's kind of the context that we're going off of here. However, the handbook is going to be applicable to many situations. And by the way, yes, there is a recording that's available to you for these sessions, not just this session. You're recording other sessions, correct, Lauren? At our YouTube channel? Yeah, okay. So I'm going to go forward and share my screen. Additionally, keep in mind that we have workshops at all the centers. And perhaps, Lauren, you can put in the link to the the workshops into the chat room, because I know there's a whole list of workshops listed at our website. So with that in mind, I'm going to go forward, and we're just going to go through an employee handbook. And here we go. Here's Amazing Toys, my dream toy brick and mortar location. Be that as it may, we're going to go forward with the discussion of employees and hiring an employee handbook. So first of all, if you have decided to hire someone, you need to register with the EDD, get a payroll service, take care of all the administrative stuff. And then you want to give them a welcome letter. You want to go ahead and welcome them to the team and give them a handbook. Okay, so however you describe your business, maybe it's construction, maybe it's you're a therapist, maybe you're consulting, maybe whatever you're doing, give them a little background about the business. They should obviously know something, but even in the handbook and a welcome letter, give them a little something about the business, like a company overview. Make sure they know the mission statement. If you don't have a mission statement, come talk to us. We can help you create the mission statement. You should have one. In this case, the mission is to inspire imagination and play, foster the growth and development of children through our high quality products and exceptional customer service. That's the mission statement for this business. Whatever yours is, create it and put it in the welcome letter. And determine your core values. Remember, this is a toy store, so we want to encourage creativity in providing safe toys and make sure it's fun for everybody and delivering great personalized customer service. I don't know what it is for you, but we can help you figure it out if you come talk to us. Okay, so that's the welcome letter. Now, we all have to abide by certain rules. There's federal rules, the state rules regarding employment. And if you don't follow those rules, it could lead to some trouble. So you should identify in your handbook that you're an EEO employer. And the standard verbiage that you can see here. We hire, train, and promote individuals based on their qualifications, abilities, etc., without regard to race, color, religion, gender, sexual orientation, national origin, age, disability, or any other protected characteristic as established by law. And these categories keep expanding. So just have that clause in the handbook and make sure everybody is aware in your company, in your business, that there's no discrimination, period. There should never be discrimination based upon these protected categories. And then you should define the employment categories. So in this case, full-time employees work an average of 40 hours per week. Part-time employees work fewer than 40. You could put down 25 and 30 because there's a number of hours where health insurance kicks in. But define it for people. And in this case, we have seasonal employees because we're a toy store. You may not have seasonal employees. Or maybe you are a roofing company and you're really busy at certain periods and not busy at other periods. I don't know, maybe you're busy throughout the entire year. Whatever it is, if you have seasonality, reference it in your handbook. You can define this by even more categories if you want. This is an important clause, at-will employment. In the state of California, all employers are at-will employers. What that means is the employee or the company may terminate the employment relationship at any time. There is no requirement for you to keep an employee on payroll. None whatsoever, zero. But you have to be careful about how you manage the employment relationship. You cannot fire someone just because you don't like their color, you don't like their sexual orientation. Older employees have certain rules where you approach it. So always have at hand access to a professional human resources professional that can help you work through the process of terminating an employment relationship so that you can avoid an unlawful termination lawsuit, which happens quite frequently. So yes, technically, we have an at-will employer-employee relationship in the state of California, but there's many rules regarding unlawful termination that you must follow. So be very careful about those rules, especially when it comes to those involved with unions. Now, this is going to be a non-union store. However, some of you may be involved with unions, in which case you have to follow the union rules. And the union rules can be quite extensive regarding how you treat the relationships. And right now, we have at least 3 unions on strike in LA. We have the writers union, we have the actors union, SAG-AFTRA, and we have in Los Angeles, the hospitality workers on strike, all part of unions. So unions still play a big role in the economy. There should be a code of conduct. Now, this code of conduct is specific to this particular store. You know, when you greet someone, you should smile, say thank you, etc. Be polite, be courteous. You know, standard stuff you would teach your children. Show respect at all times. Maintain discipline. This is basic stuff. Okay. However, you should still include it in your document so people understand your expectations. Okay. No physical violence, of course, no verbal arguments, none of this stuff. This leads to immediate, in my view, this leads to immediate suspension. None of this should ever be happening. It does happen, no question it happens. And when it does, address it appropriately. But just don't go and immediately fire someone. Do an investigation, bring in a professional to help you figure out the best way to approach these types of issues. Okay, falsification of time records, that's a big one. Reporting work under the influence of drugs or alcohol, threatening co-workers. This is all inappropriate behavior. And if you're aware of it, you need to take appropriate action because it is your responsibility to protect yourself, the other employees, and clients and customers who come see you. And if you don't deal with these issues and someone is hurt or damaged in some way, then you might be sued by the employees that are affected, by the clients, by the customers. So you can't ignore these issues. You must take action if they happen in the workplace. And of course, you need to hold yourself to an even higher standard. Many companies have dress codes. I know there's some back and forth about what's appropriate for a dress code. This one's fairly simple. Be neat, be appropriate. And there is a dress code policy. Remember, this is a store that has a brick and mortar location and you're meeting clients. You may not have a customer facing job. You may be in IT, or you may have an IT company where you have workers who are not really necessarily interfacing one-on-one with the general public. Maybe a dress code policy isn't all that important to this level, to the extent that you have an actual dress code written policy, which I'll show you. But still, you might consider some sort of dress code policy. I used to work in San Diego. I moved from Boston to San Diego before I moved to LA. And my first job as an accountant, I walked in and I saw people wearing sandals and shorts. And I'm wearing a suit and tie, conservative boss. And I'm like, what the hell? I thought this was a professional workplace. Nobody told me you could wear sandals and shorts. Those were people working in IT. The accounting people couldn't dress like that. We had to wear appropriate work clothes for what we were doing. It was very strange to me. Then I got used to it. So if that's your work structure, if that's how you want to handle things and let people come in with sandals and whatever, fine. But be sure they dress appropriately such that there's no reason for them to be harmed in any way in the workplace. So when it comes to, for example, manufacturing floors, production floors, I know you have to be wearing safety shoes and helmets. You have to comply with OSHA requirements. And if someone's in a restaurant or a food establishment, you have to comply with all of those rules. So be very careful about the dress code policy and make sure it's appropriate for your business or industry. Punctuality is a big deal. Now, the number one issue facing employers is finding good employees. And what do good employees want? They want flexibility. So wherever you can, if it's appropriate for your business, try to make the schedules flexible to make it easier for employees to work for you. Now, I do realize that if somebody's on an assembly line or somebody's on a maintenance shift, there can be very little flexibility, in which case they have to show up on time and be ready to work. Just make sure everybody understands the policy, everybody understands the schedule, and don't change schedules abruptly because people have to schedule out their lives. But there is an expectation that people show up on time for their shifts. Now, these are hourly employees. When it comes to exempt salary employees, that's a lot different. Some salary employees can work at night, depends upon their work. They don't necessarily have to be working the same time you're working. It depends upon your situation. Unscheduled absences are a problem. So if somebody doesn't show up for work 2, 3, 4, 5 times in a relatively short period of time, that's a problem. Places too much burden on other workers, places a burden on you. Take action. Don't allow it. Give them warnings. And that also includes late arrivals, because it just causes too much disruption to the workplace. Now, I realize there might be valuable employees and it's hard to find new ones, but find ways to accommodate their schedules and find ways to determine why there's absence of schedules. Are they taking interviews with someone else? Maybe they are, or maybe they just want to tell you. Develop a good relationship for employees and you'll find out what's going on with them. I'm not suggesting being an ogre. I'm actually suggesting that you do not be an ogre. I'm suggesting that you be respectful and understand where your employees are coming from. Obviously, there has to be confidentiality. Your workers should not be talking about customers, colleagues, or the customer and company information to anyone. They should not be disclosing any of this to anyone, including their own family. Now, that's hard to control, but they shouldn't be. There should be no conflict of interest. You can't have employees working for your competitors at the same. No, that's a conflict of interest. So have a conflict of interest policy in place. Keep that in mind. And if an employee becomes aware that another employee has a conflict of interest, they should report it to you or the Human Resources Department. Now, employee benefits, this is big, right? Everybody wants the benefits. It used to be you get so many days for sick time, so many days for holidays. Now it's changed. It's called paid time off. And you can set the amount of hours for paid time off. In a competitive marketplace, you might want to be generous with regards to paid time off. Make sure everybody understands your policy. I can't tell you what your policy is. You need to find it for yourself. And obviously recognize the holidays. We now have 3 new state holidays, which I went over in this state, including Juneteenth, the Chinese New Year. Those are 2 of them. I forget what the third one is. Oh, it's Genocide Remembrance Day. If you want to allow your employees to take those off, maybe you should consider it. Tight labor marketplace. Health insurance, you should have a health insurance plan in place, and you should offer to pay for some of it because you're competing heavily in an employee-driven marketplace. And this is a hot topic button for many employees. Obviously, set expectations and performances. By the way, I don't agree with annual performance evaluations. I think that's a mistake. Why wait a year to tell someone how they're doing? There should be constant feedback throughout the year, throughout the weeks, throughout the months, to let people know how they're doing. Talk to your employees. Let them know where they can improve in a nice way. Help them improve. But waiting to the end of the year to give a performance review, that's old school stuff. And it doesn't work very well, to be honest. Disciplinary actions, make sure everybody understands those actions. And there are times you should take disciplinary actions, like someone doesn't show up 3 times in a row and doesn't give you a reason why. Yeah, that's a problem. Find out why before you take the disciplinary action. And once again, you should have a human resources professional working with you right? And your employees should report any violations. Now, will employees do that? Some will. Some might say, hey, I've been working very hard for this company, and this person over here is breaking all sorts of rules. Yeah, they might report it. Absolutely. Alcohol and drug use, obvious, just don't allow it, period, especially when they're operating equipment. Now, you might be a cannabis grower. Even if you're a cannabis grower, you shouldn't allow people smoking on the job. This is just causes too many problems, and it could cause injury. What people do in their own time, that's their business. But during work time, there should be a prohibition against alcohol and drug use. By the way, if somebody does have an alcohol or drug use problem, you can offer resources to them and help them recover. That would be appropriate, or your health insurance policy might offer that to them. So I'm not saying immediately fire someone if you know that there's an alcohol or drug abuse problem. I'm suggesting that you work with that employee to see if you can help them out in some way, shape, or form. Yeah, employees shouldn't be distributing materials that you don't want them to distribute. Obviously, marketing folks, flyers, marketing material, flyers, collateral, sure, that can be distributed in the stores. That can be distributed during meetings. But in general, you should know what's being distributed for your business. Obviously, safety is important. Meet all the requirements for healthcare and OSHA, because if you don't, and Cal OSHA will audit you, as will the federal OSHA agency. So safety is the #1 issue. You have to be sure everybody's safe, and it's your responsibility. You are the one that would be paying the fine, not the employee, if there's a violation. And if somebody gets hurt or injured, you will be sued. You're the one responsible for being sure that everyone is safe. I was a CFO for a very large dental lab, and we brought in specialists to be sure that the technicians who were making the dentures and the implants, et cetera, were following all safety rules. And we paid dearly for that advice because we knew it was most important. I also was the CFO for a scaffold company. Construction is a very, very dangerous profession. So we had all sorts of rules in place, and they were reinforced every month, all workers as to how to properly put up scaffolding and take it down. And we had no injuries while I was on that job for a couple of years, none. Safety is all important, as is security. Now, I'm going to come back to security. Protecting assets is important, but life is more important. No one's life should ever be put in danger because of your assets. Never. And you probably heard of stories of clerks being fired because they stopped a robbery in progress. There's a reason for that, because they put their life at risk. Never, ever should life be put at risk. You can replace money. You can replace inventory and equipment. But life of your clients, of yourself, and your employees is of paramount importance. That's why you carry insurance. Insurance will reimburse you. And if you don't have insurance, you need it. Never, ever physically engage with anyone, a client, a customer, employee, unless it's self-defense. You have no choice. Open door policy. You want your employees to feel comfortable talking to you. You want them to bring concerns to you. You don't want to shut your door, walk away, and say, leave me alone, because that's sending a message that you don't care about your employees. And without your employees, what do you have? And by the way, if you think you're going to hire a bunch of independent contractors, guess again, because the state of California shut that down. All workers must be employees, unless they meet an exception, like they have a business in place, as I do, as many of you do. However, all workers must be employees. That is the default status in the state of California and 30 other states. You want to have an open and transparent communication with your employees, so you know what's going on. I work with a lot of human resources people, they would have individuals that they would speak to that they know would provide information as to what's going on in various departments. And it was the right thing to do, because human resources is responsible for maintaining the safety, security, and the morale of the people in the company. There's all sorts of issues regarding electronic communications. Bottom line, you have to have a policy in place to be sure that all communications are done in a professional manner, in a responsible manner, and that the messaging platforms are appropriate, as are emails. There should be no misuse of these communication channels. There should be no, let's say, gossip about the company put out by any employees. Now, I do realize there are platforms that employees can go to provide reviews of the company they work for. Glassdoor is one of them. What we did is we wanted people to go to Glassdoor because we didn't have a lot of Glassdoor reviews. And we encouraged people to go to Glassdoor, and we gave them a reward if they did do a review on Glassdoor. And of course, we got a lot of great reviews because they wanted the reward. Amendments and acknowledgement. So your company has the right to modify, update, and amend the employee handbook. The employees need to know that. And all employees will get these revisions. And have your workers, employees sign it, date it. Don't just give it to them and walk away, because you're going to refer back to this when there's an issue that comes up. That happens too much. You give them the handbook, they take it home, they never bring it back to you. No, you have them read it, and then you tell them to come back, and they have to sign it and hand you the signed sheet. Okay. So it's providing general information. It's not a contract of employment. That's different. There is no contract of employment. We're an at-will state. Okay. Now, before I go any further, Lauren, you want to make any comments about anything I just went over?
No, I think I think this is really great content. It's stuff that, I don't know, as you're talking through it, I'm like, oh yeah, of course, but it's something you definitely have to think about as an entrepreneur. So I think this is a great presentation.
Terrific. Okay, let me continue on from there. So I mentioned the dress code policy. Now, not everybody will have a detailed dress code policy, but brick and mortar stores do. That's why when you walk into Nordstrom's or you walk into Target or many other retail stores or studios or salons, you might see people wearing similar clothes for a reason. First of all, it's branding. Okay. Now, in this case, the objective is that the employee appearance contributes to the culture and reputation. If somebody in a retail store as an employee is dressed inappropriately and they're dealing with the public, that's a bad image, right? You want a good image. Now, you may not have employees interfacing with customers, but they might be interfacing with other vendors or suppliers. They might be interfacing with governmental agencies. They might be interfacing with support services around you, like attorneys, accountants, etc. So even though they may not be customer facing, you still want to have some sort of dress code policy if they're interfacing with others. That includes, by the way, interfacing remotely via Zoom. I realize there's lots of jokes out there, people showing up without, wearing weird stuff on Zoom. Your employees shouldn't be wearing weird stuff on Zoom. They should be dressing professionally, okay? I know Lauren and the rest of the leads in the team, I think you put out guidelines, didn't you, Lauren, about Zoom dress code? Did you?
About dress codes in general, but yes, as it relates to Zoom as well.
Right. That's why you're not seeing us in torn t-shirts, okay? So this applies to all employees, including yourself. because you are an employee of your own business. You can't expect people to dress in a particular way if you're not meeting the same code. I was the CFO, like I said, a dental lab. All managers had to wear suit and ties. And this was back in 2016, 2017, not 1985. We had to wear a suit and tie every day. And the owner of that business, which was doing $50 million a year, I helped sell it for $80 million. He came in with a suit and tie every day. And if we didn't have a suit and tie every day, he talked to us about it. Guess what? All the managers wore a suit and tie that were men, and all the women wore professional dress suits. That's the way he wanted it. He set the dress code. At some point, it was relaxed so we could take the tie off one day a week. By the way, that was the dress code back in the 80s and 90s in Boston and New York for anyone working in finance, accounting, et cetera. And even now, banks, lawyers, accountants, the expectation is you dress appropriate to your profession. Now, your profession may not require it, but you still want to have some sort of policy in place, okay? And yeah, employees who do not meet a professional standard may be sent home to change. They may complain about it, but send them home anyway. All right, now, obviously accommodations have to be made for various issues. And I'm not talking about religious garb. That's totally allowed and you shouldn't discriminate regarding religious garb. But professional attire should be required, especially when it's customer facing jobs. So clothing can't be too tight or revealing. No rips, no tears, no frays, no extreme style or fashion in dress. Footwear is a big issue. It shouldn't be extreme accessories. Oh God, I don't know, Laura, have you been in workplaces where the fragrances are so, it was extreme, have you? Yeah.
Yeah, my last before I came to the SBDC. Very,
Yeah.
very strong.
Right. Obviously, demonstrate good judgment, professional taste. Always be courteous. Everyone needs to have a professional image in this case. Now, I'm not telling you what to do in your business, but this is the way I would expect people to dress in the business that I want to have with my wonderful toy store. Now, with the toy store, I might change this up a little bit and have branded, maybe polo shirts that represents the toy store. Okay, but it'd be professional. If an employee is unsure, they should check with you or their manager. Okay, and there may be action taken if they don't dress appropriately. Typically, just be, hey, you know, Susie, maybe you shouldn't be wearing that. That's a little too revealing. Or Tom, you know, let's get rid of the jeans, the torn. Let's get some professional attire, that type of stuff. Okay, so here we have for men, in this particular case, long sleeve shirt, dress trousers or khakis and appropriate shoes, no sneakers. Our retail associates may wear company branded polo shirt and khakis, totally appropriate. For women, tailored pantsuits, business-like dresses, whatever this is, coordinated dressy separates. I know Lauren knows what this is about, okay? Consider closed-toe shoes. And retail associates may wear the company branded polo shirt and a mid-length skirt or trousers. Makes sense. Except for Fridays. Okay. But then you can dress down a little bit more. All right. But no t-shirts, no inappropriate slogans, no tank tops, no muscle shirts, no camouflage, no crop top. Why would someone wear camouflage to work? That I don't get it all. Okay. It comes up again in for pants too. No camouflage wear, okay? You're not in the army. And the footwear has to be appropriate. No flip-flops. And grooming and hygiene is all important, et cetera. Now, if you're in a business where you are required to buy uniforms, then you need to pay for those uniforms and for the cleaning of those uniforms or protective clothing, because your employees are at risk. And there are businesses that do require uniforms. Now, I'm not talking about police. I'm not talking about firemen. They have to take care of their own uniforms. But you may be required to pay for the uniforms and to have them taken care of and cleaned. Now, obviously, if there's inclement weather, it's been the hot streak, and I mean, across the country, it's terrible. I think it hit 120 in Texas, 115, and in Vermont, a deluge over the past week. I mean, it's been horrendous in many areas of the country this past week, and it's going to continue on into next week. In those circumstances, where the weather is just so bad, it's very difficult to meet requirements. There has to be some sort of give on wearing, suits, ties, or whatever. I am a professional martial arts referee. I go to tournaments because I'm a 7th degree black belt in traditional Okinawan karate. And we have a standard of dress, which includes a blazer or tie, dress pants, white shirt, blue tie, blue blazer, and navy pants. If it's 100 degrees out with 80% humidity in a gym with 1,000 people or 2,000 or 3,000 people watching, we still have to wear that because we're presenting our appearance to the public. And it's sometimes difficult, okay? So make accommodations where it's appropriate with this inclement weather, okay? Now, in this case, during the summer months, we make some accommodations, so a little bit relaxed dress code, okay? But inappropriate summer dress, shorts, logo clothing, that's it's branded for the company logo, flip-flops, sleeveless tops, sweatpants. I know I'm talking about a lot of clothing, but this comes up quite a bit. Now, obviously, you need to accommodate the religious beliefs. No question about that, okay? Let me continue on from here. So you can take action if someone is wearing offensive clothing or offensive perfumes or body odor, and you can go ahead and address those appropriately with those employees. Paid time off. Now, here's an example of a vacation policy. So we have full-time retail associate employees. So when they start, they get 10 days of paid vacation each year. This is a standard policy. But there's a cap. So they can't carry it over 100 days, 200 days of vacation, okay? The vacation policy has a cap of 1.75 times the annual accrual rate, or 17 and a half days. That's 1.75 times 10 days. So the vacation will roll over year to year, but once they reach 7.5 days, no more vacation will accrue, and this is legal. And you should have this policy in place. Now, for managers and executives, it's a little bit different because you're going to be negotiating salaried positions. But at no time will the cap exceed 1.75 times the annual accrual rate. Okay, this is a perfectly legitimate and valid approach to vacation caps. And then if someone wants to take vacation, they have to give you notice or else it causes problem. Let's say you have 5 people working for you and you have a major project coming up and someone hits you and says, oh, by the way, I'm taking the next 2 weeks off. And you have a deadline for that project. That's a problem. So they have to give you notice of the vacation. Now, independent contractors don't. However, if they do that, they probably won't get any other work from whoever is engaging them. Okay, notice this. The company reserves the right not to grant vacation during certain times of the year due to seasonal customer demand. With a toy store, no way is anyone getting vacation during the Christmas season. Ain't happening. And we're going to bring you next to hell. After Christmas, sure, no problem. Okay, whatever your seasonality is, you have the right not to grant vacation during certain times of the year. Paid sick leave, obviously, should be provided to employees because you want to take care of your employees. And it's the eligibility rules here. You know, all employees who work 30 more days in California within a year of the employment get sick leave. And there's an accrual for sick leave. It's 1 hour of sick time for every 30 hours worked. So basically it's 1 hour a week to a maximum of 48 hours or 6 days. And then it's an eligible employee After 90 days, eligible employees may begin to use paid sick time under this policy and increments up to 2 hours. Okay, so this stuff is important to remember. People can take leaves to care for others. Just remember that. They can now designate someone up front to you as to who they need to take care of. It doesn't have to be a family member. It could be a friend. That's a new law that was put into place this year. And you have to grant it to them, by the way. Okay. And so if it's possible, I don't know how you can plan for sick leave, but if it's possible, they should give you notice. Obviously, if they're taking care of someone else, they might be able to plan for that. Okay. And you should be paying out your sick leave and vacation leave to employees when they leave. And none of these rules should be run afoul of the federal rules, CFR of the state, of the federal rules. State rules, CFRA, and FMLA is the federal rules, Family and Medical Leave Act, and for the state, it's the California Family Rights Act. Okay. And as always, if anyone has any questions, they should contact their manager or you. And you should explain this stuff to them. And if you don't know how to explain it to them, go to your professional human resources resource. Okay. Now, here's a safety and security policy, right? This is more detail to what we said before. Okay. Applies to everybody, applies to you. Okay. Everybody shares responsibility for safety and health. Everybody. Okay. And it should be regular training go on in a production shop. There's forklift training. There should always be training going on throughout the year for employees. New employees should be trained on safety and health issues, food service, whatever you're doing. I have been involved in these trainings even for office workers, like, store electrical cords safely, right? Do not bring in those heaters that people like in the winter, in the winter time, because they can cause a problem. They can short circuit, burn out, cause problems. So there's all sorts of rules of safety that you should be aware of, whether or not people are in the office, working from home, or at a physical location. All right, which includes everyone should get up from their desk every hour or so and take a walk. Those things are now coming into play because employers realize that sitting at a desk all day long is really not good for someone's health. All right, and if anyone sees an unsafe working condition, they should report it. All right, and anytime there's an injury, there should be an immediate report, and there should be an investigation. There should never ever be a doubt about what is required should there ever be an injury or an accident. There should be an immediate action taken and appropriate steps to handle that situation. Okay. Unsafe conditions should always be reported. Now, if someone doesn't report an unsafe condition, and they know, you might have a supervisor who has known that something has been unsafe and never reported it. Well, first of all, that's on you, because you should be checking in with your managers and supervisors, number one. And number two, that manager supervisor should be subject to discipline. Because why would a manager or supervisor not report an unsafe working condition? That's just flat out wrong, in my opinion. You may disagree with what I'm stating. A lot of this is my opinion, but I believe that's flat out wrong. Okay, so I would have words with a supervisor or a manager who knows about an unsafe condition that may cause injury to someone and doesn't report it for a long period of time. Now, maybe they didn't notice it. That's one thing. But if they're aware of it and they let it go, that's something else. Now, some of you may be handling cash, and in this case, this is a brick and mortar store. So we have a cash handling policy and a credit card handling policy. I'm sure some of you have worked in retail stores before. Maybe you've been subject to these types of policies in the past. Never changes. The register should be, now the register is a little bit more secure than the old cash registers, but still these rules are in place. Only authorized employees have access to it, securely locked, etc. This is how you handle cash. These are very solid and legitimate ways of handling cash transactions. By the way, some businesses don't want to handle cash anymore. It's too much of a risk. They'll only take credit cards or debit cards. Cash is subject to theft. So are credit cards, but cash could be a real problem. Counting the cash, checking the cash, all that stuff, delivering the cash to the bank could be a problem for a business. All right, so you have step after step here as to how to handle cash. By the way, I'm going to send this to Lauren, and if you write to Lauren, you'll be able to gain access to this. But I would also tell you that you should not enact these policies without working through a professional human resources resource. Okay, so here's a credit card handling policy. You know, all the card holder data must be confidential, etc. You might be subject to federal rules if you don't meet all these requirements regarding processing credit card transactions. And there's a point of sale security policy. I'm not going to go through all this. System security. Just be aware you should have this if you're dealing with point of sale transactions. It should be reviewed. And anyone dealing with the cash flowing, credit card processing, and POS systems should be trained. How else are they going to know what to do? And you might have to do the training. Cybersecurity. You can buy cybersecurity insurance. That is available to you. But they're going to first say to you, if there's a claim, do you have a cybersecurity policy? If you don't have one, I don't know how far your claim is going to go. So have a cybersecurity policy. Okay? And it applies to employees, contractors, vendors, any other individuals that have access to your systems. Employees, contractors, vendors, and any other individuals that have access to your system. People don't think about vendors. They don't think about other individuals. Maybe your attorney might have access to your system. Okay, this applies to that person too. You, as the manager of your business, is responsible for implementation, maintenance, and enforcement of the policy. No one else. You are. Senior management is. But it's the employee responsibility to comply with it. And there should be security awareness training. Now, there is a classification of data, there's access controls. You can read through this yourself. All access to systems should be logged, access rights should be regularly reviewed, etc. Okay, have one in place so that should something happen, you'll be able to refer back to this. I'm going to continue on from here. And this network security, for those of you involved in IT, you're very familiar with what this is all about. And there should be incident reporting, etc. Yeah, there's a lot of policies here, but it's important to have them in place. So I'm going to move away from the cybersecurity policy. Expense reimbursement. So someone comes to you, an employee, and says, you know what? I had to buy something for the business, reimburse me. And you say, what? I didn't authorize that. What did you buy? Well, I had to buy some office supplies, or I had to go buy a gift for a client. And you're going to say, I didn't tell you to do that. We never discussed it. This policy is in place to prevent that from happening. If you're going to have employees that are going to incur expenses on behalf of the company, there should be a policy in place to reimburse those employees. And if they don't follow policy, then maybe they don't get reimbursed. It depends on the situation, right? So first of all, the expense should be reasonable and necessary. Reasonable and necessary. Okay, number one. And it might include travel expenses, conferences, business-related meals, office supplies, equipment purchases, phone expenses, all this stuff associated with the business. But it must be reasonable. And sometimes businesses set a per diem rate for travel. So if someone decides to book a $500 a night hotel to attend a conference, well, that's far beyond what the per diem rate allows, which might be $100 a day, including meals. You're not responsible for reimbursing someone if they choose luxurious accommodations. And up front, you should tell people what the per diem rate is. And oftentimes, what businesses do will force employees to pay for those expenses through their own credit cards and then reimburse them afterwards, which is perfectly acceptable. Okay. Now, non-reimbursable expenses. No personal expenses, unrelated business activities. You're not responsible for paying for everybody's lunch. Okay. Or entertainment, or anything that violates company policies or laws. If it's not properly authorized, there should be an authorization policy in place, a procedure in place before it gets to that point. Okay, I've set these policies in place. You must submit a pre-approval form for the expenditure. And then you check the expenditure, see if it didn't exceed a certain amount, and then you get reimbursed. Up depending upon how much we're talking about, right? So here's the pre-approval process. Okay. And then it has to be documented. Do not reimburse them without receipts, without proof. Okay. Because if you are audited by the IRS is going to say, prove the expense. Where's your receipts? Well, I don't have it. I just give the money to the client, to the employee. IRS says disallowed. Sorry, can't do that. Nope. You must have proof that that's a reasonable business expense. And you will fail an audit if you don't have it. And you must justify those expenses when you go through an audit. Okay. So your employees should submit a completed expense report with all sorts of information on it. It's your own money, so make sure it's handled properly. Okay. You should be approving it, or someone should be approving it. And don't rely on your bookkeeper. Your bookkeeper is not responsible for checking the reasonableness and the appropriateness of expenses. It is on you, or maybe a department manager that you assign to supervise employees. It's not on your bookkeeper. Your bookkeeper is there to book transactions, not to approve expenses. They might question an expense, in which case you should investigate it. All right. So all employees are subject to this, including yourself. You're not exempt from your own policies. Keep that in mind. Okay. And there should be a disciplinary policy in place. And this has all the steps associated with it, including informal counseling, a formal procedure, an investigation. Don't just be reactive. Work in a way that's appropriate depending upon the situation. Sometimes it just requires a little conversation with someone, say, we really don't do things that way. You might want to rethink how you're handling this customer, rather than getting all aggressive and threatening all sorts of things. Work collaboratively with your employees. That's my opinion. But if it gets to a certain point, you go through these actions. Okay. Verbal warning, written warning, we're all familiar with this: suspension, termination, and there should be an appeals process. Okay. These policies are in place to protect you as well as to protect employees. And now we have an enhanced code of conduct, which we can adopt if we wanted to. Okay. So don't take a part-time job where you're going to be basically taking a part-time job here while you're supposed to be doing work over there. In other words, you can't be working two jobs at the same time. That's a no-no. Okay. Don't direct business to a supplier that's owned by a relative. This is a conflict of interest rule, right? Don't disclose non-public information. Don't engage your friends to work for the company, etc. These are all standard types of rules that should be put into place for employees in relation to conflicts of interest. We have conflict of interest rules that we have to follow. Our rules state that we cannot refer you to only one referral source. We need to have at least 2 or 3 referral sources. We can't take any referral fees as individuals, and we don't, by the way. So when we give you a referral, we give you more than one referral, and we're not taking responsibility for that referral. It's up to you to do your own investigation. We have also, we can't be paid by any client of the SBDC that we work with, okay? Because it'd be inappropriate. And so these are all of the conflict of interest rules, okay? And again, You can go do this on your own. You may already have one in place for yourself. I don't know. If you do, that's great, but you might want to review it to be sure that it's in compliance with the latest rules that come out for the state and from the federal government. So no bribery, no corruption, all that type of stuff. I'm not going to go through all of this. No bribes. Travel contributions are good. Cause marketing is awesome. Okay. But employees should not expect something back in return for travel contribution from the company. That's inappropriate. Okay. All sorts of rules regarding money laundering. Okay. So people should be aware of how money laundering happens, unusual funding sources, payments from parties or transfers of funds from countries not involved in a transaction or unrelated to the customer. Customers or third parties who are reluctant to provide complete information or provide false information. So there's ways kind of to see whether or not there's any money laundering going on. We already talked about the anti-discrimination, anti-harassment. Anti-harassment, every employee in the state of California over a certain size must provide anti-harassment training once a year. Is that right, Lauren? Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, it is correct. Yeah. So keep that in mind. There's all sorts of rules that come out from the state of California. Okay. So you have diversity and fair employment practices in place. You can't discriminate. Everybody has to conduct their affairs honestly and respectfully. Privacy should be maintained. No, we talked about this. So this is kind of a more enhanced type of code. Okay. And again, you can go through this step by step, and it's going to give you all sorts of rules and guidelines to follow. So I think I'm going to stop there. I believe we have one question. I'm seeing agencies approaching me to hire me for contract position. They say I'll be hired as a W-2 employee with no benefit, no holiday. Can't do that. No, that is totally wrong, Sharon. You should run away from that agency. Okay. If they're going to hire you as a W-2 employee, they need to pay you for holidays. They need to have a sick day in place. This is an employee's marketplace. Absolutely not. Do not take on that position, in my opinion. What do you think, Lauren?
Ugh, I agree. Sharon, like Mike mentioned, it is a employees marketplace, so you should definitely be looking to negotiate those terms. Especially if it's something you really want. If it's a job you really want, negotiate your terms.
Right. Now, this is a little confusing. It says they're approaching you to hire you for a contract position. Are they hiring you? Are they engaging you as an independent contractor, or are they putting you on payroll? As an independent contractor,
No
that
benefits.
is correct. Right. So your question is a little confusing. Okay. All right. I'm going to end for today and wish everybody a good day and a good weekend. And we will be back next week. Maybe we'll be talking about benefits. All right. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you for your time.